to do a little bit of a breakdown of the Democratic presidential primary race. At this point in time, Bernie obviously has went 3 for 3, won Iowa, won New Hampshire, absolutely crushed it, destroyed everybody in Nevada. He was declared the winner with like 3% or 4% of the precincts reporting. He was up by such a massive margin. There was no way any of the other candidates could have won the Nevada caucus, and I've heard multiple people say that it was the first time that any candidate has won the popular vote in the first 3 contests, whether Democrat, Republican. I think that just says, a lot about the type of movement and hugely diverse working class coalition that Bernie Sanders represents, and the movement that has propelled him to so much success already. And obviously we have the South Carolina primary coming up next, and then the big I think Super Tuesday. I think there's like 17 primary and caucus states up for grabs then. So just wanted to do a little bit a breakdown from 538 and then look at some polls for South Carolina. So before the Nevada caucuses, Bernie Sanders had about a 41% chance, according to 538, of winning a majority of the delegates. He was at 41% before the Nevada caucuses. He jumped up, I should say he was at 40% chance of winning the majority of the delegates. I should say in the Democratic primary, he's now up to 46%, so almost a 50% chance from 538's polling that Bernie Sanders will win a majority of the delegates. That's obviously super important, because if Bernie goes into the convention, he has the majority of delegates that won't go to the second round of voting, so the superdelegates won't be able to cheat Bernie Sanders, won't be able to steal the nomination from him. So if Bernie Sanders just keeps crushing it and just destroying, the field in these caucuses and primary states, he'll be able to get to that 50% threshold, and it won't matter. Obviously, this is super important, and we need to keep acting like in all these states and contests that Bernie Sanders is down by 20 points. So it's almost a 50% chance that he will win a majority of the delegates, and there's also now a 69% chance of him winning a plurality of the delegates, up 8% after Nevada. So almost a 70% chance that he's going to win a plurality of the delegates. So it's basically, he's more or less shoo-in at this point that he'll have a plurality of the delegates heading into the convention, and we just need to keep up the momentum so he has a majority, so the DNC won't be able to screw him out of it, because they know that they're more than willing and capable and okay with going against the will of the voters, overturning democracy in favor of propping up their corrupt establishment system. So that's very good. Let's go into a little bit of polling from South Carolina now. So this is from Slate. Biden 28%, Bernie at 23%, Steyer 18%, and Warren 12%, Buttigieg 10%. So this poll had a margin of error of 5.5%. So Biden and Bernie are very much neck and neck heading into the South Carolina primary. But check this out. Just back in October, what is that, 4.5 months ago, Biden was up by a whopping, a gargantuan 28 points in the South Carolina primary polls. 4.5 months ago, he was up by 28 points. He had 43% of the vote at that time, Warren at 18%, Bernie at 16%. So Biden's support has plummeted a whole 15 points in the span of 4 months. Actually, it says 19 points according to this. And there's a political science professor who teaches at the University of South Carolina that was quoted, I should say, in this Slate article that said that more or less if Joe Biden loses the South Carolina primary, his presidential race is basically over, and if he's able to win it, then he's able to kind of jumpstart his campaign again and get some momentum heading into the Super Tuesday contest. So it's super important that we do everything that we can to make sure Bernie Sanders wins the South Carolina primary, because it looks like, there's a good chance that it'll totally kneecap and just destroy Joe Biden's presidential campaign. That's super important. Get him out of the race and keep going on to Super Tuesday. So let's see. And also Bernie's just positioned also really well to do just amazing and just to clean up on the Super Tuesday states, especially in these bigger states that have a lot of delegates up for grabs. It looks like he's positioned to win in Texas and California, both super important. I saw something on Twitter that some of the polls are showing Bernie Sanders is the only candidate above the 15% threshold, so he might be the only candidate getting delegates potentially in the California primary. That would be amazing because they have so many delegates up for grabs there. And then, so and this is from 538 for South Carolina. Sanders currently has a 2 and 5 chance, around 40% chance of winning the South Carolina primary. Joe Biden's 1 and 2, so it's close. Biden maybe has a slight lead, but it's very close. And the Not Me Us movement, we need to do everything that we can to make sure Bernie Sanders does win. He already won New Hampshire, I should say, South Carolina, whether that's making phone calls, talking to friends and family members, knocking on doors if you are down there in South Carolina, donating money, chipping in a couple bucks to the campaign, posting on different platforms on social media. And he's also, this is from this kind of interesting from the sports betting website, but like I said, Bernie's the odds-on favorite to win Texas, California, as well as, get this, Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren's home state. Bernie Sanders is the odds-on favorite to win Elizabeth Warren's home state of Massachusetts. When that happens, I really hope for her sake she drops out, because that's just going to be, so pathetic on her part to lose her home state to Bernie Sanders. And again, there's no chance of Elizabeth Warren winning the nomination. All she's doing at this point is splitting the progressive vote. So if she was really concerned with getting a progressive elected, she would have dropped out by this point and endorsed Bernie Sanders. But it's clear that she's trying to go into some type of contested convention and have the superdelegates throw some support her way, or she becomes the VP for one of the neoliberal centrists, like a Biden, like a Bloomberg, something like that. So, but it's Bernie's the front runner. He's setting records with regards to fundraising, the amount of individual donors. He's the first candidate ever to win the popular vote in the first 3 contests, this being obviously Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. And he's like neck and neck with Joe Biden in South Carolina. Biden's tanked 19 points in South Carolina since October, and the more Joe Biden has to interact with the public and the voting electorate, the worse it gets for him. He's obviously just better off running a campaign of the least amount of exposure as possible, and I think he would get destroyed by Donald Trump. Poll after poll shows that Bernie Sanders is the best positioned candidate to beat Donald Trump. He also beats Trump in the crucial Rust Belt states, and he's also winning the Democratic primary polls in those states as well. So let's make sure Bernie wins in South Carolina and sweeps all the states on Super Tuesday and just crushes it by huge, massive margins like he did in Nevada. So the corrupt kind of DNC establishment and these status quo defenders aren't able to try to do some of their shady, corrupt stuff by trying to steal the nomination from him. So let's just keep up the momentum and not meet us. Peace.